Crimson Tide fans, before we get today's show started, be sure to hit that big red button and subscribe to the Alabama Football Report, your one-stop shop for everything Alabama Crimson Tide football news and rumors. We're keeping you up to date on the latest Nick Saban press conferences. We're keeping you up to date on the latest games, whatever you need to know about Alabama football, including a little bit of recruiting. We got it right here for you, and it's 100% free. All you got to do is hit that big red button and subscribe to the Alabama Football Report. Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome into the Alabama Football Report. I am your host, RC Maxfield. After a 48-14 win for your Alabama Crimson Tide over the Mercer Bears, Alabama will move to 2-0 and head into SEC play down in Gainesville with a perfect record. But let's talk about the 5 takeaways from Week 2 for the Alabama Crimson Tide versus Mercer. And again, this is against Mercer. We're very much nitpicking here, but Nick Saban's going to do the same thing. Why can't we? Am I right? I've earned it. Not quite on his level, but here we are, right? The offense came out flat. It's a fact. The first 2 drives of the game for Alabama, they just didn't look good. And some of that was due in part to Bryce Young. He had a couple of bad throws, but due in large part, it was because his wide receivers had a couple drops, and the offensive line just wasn't very good, allowing pressure into his face, and Bryce Young had to throw some bad balls on outside of the numbers and really down the seam as well. So coming out flat, I thought Bryce Young came back and really just had a really solid game, all things considered. At one point, had 12 completions in a row. He went 19 for 27 with 227 yards and 3 TDs. But when you look at what happened early and often in this game in terms of the first 2 drives, I thought Young settled in and had a really solid game. Now, again, I want to preface this. It's Mercer. I get it, but you got to get game reps for a guy like Bryce Young. Nick Saban mentioned it in the offseason. They wish they would have gotten him more game reps last year, but Mac Jones was just balling out, and they couldn't take him off the field, right? So Bryce Young needs all the game reps he can get and some adversity as well heading into the toughest conference in America. I thought he really settled in nicely after the first 2 drives, but go back to school for me. Grade Bryce Young's performance so far, the first 2 games of the season. Obviously, one against the former number 14 team in the country, now the number 22 Miami Hurricanes, and then Mercer, who lost their opener to the Crimson Tide. Give me an A, B, C, D, or F down in the comments. I'm going to go with a B+ on this one. I think Bryce Young has been really, really good. You just got to go a little further in terms of what he can do with this offense and really build upon those things that he's had in terms of successes in the first 2 games of the season. Next takeaway I have is Will Anderson Jr. was everywhere early and often in this game. Now, I want to preface this. This was early in the game. There is an injury scare with him in terms of his knee. Nick Saban came out and said he will be questionable for the SEC opener down in Gainesville. Don't know how you got to take that if you're a Bama fan. Remember, they're already down a premier linebacker already for the season. And now you could be without another for the SEC opener. Could go a long way, but I thought Will Anderson really stood out early and often in terms of going after the passer, dropping back into coverage, had a few pass breakups it looked like, or at least got in the way and made it difficult for the Mercer offense to really just drive down the field at all. Really loved what I saw from him, but obviously the concern right now is how severe is that injury and will he be ready for week number 3 against the Florida Gators? BetUS is today's sponsor of the video. All you got to go is, you got to go to chatsports.com/TideBet and use the promo code Tide125. You can bet on Bama all season long. Let's say you put $100 down. They'll give you $125 for free. So you got $225 all season long. Let's say you put down $200. You got $450. You get my drift. We don't have to be good at math to figure this out. Go to chatsports.com/TideBet. Use the promo code Tide125. Maybe you want to put a few bucks down on the Tide winning the national championship. Maybe you want to put a few bucks down on Bryce Young winning the Heisman. Whatever it may be, BetUS is the place to do it. All you got to do is go to chatsports.com/TideBet and use the promo code Tide125. Special teams played lights out today. Nick Saban mentioned it in his, going into the halftime locker room that he really didn't look too happy, but he brought up special teams. And I thought they played really well throughout the whole day for the Crimson Tide in the sense that you look at what Alabama did and Nick Saban mentioning them at the in terms of the press conference going in to the locker room at halftime. I thought that showed a lot because Nick Saban had a lot of reasons to be upset in that first half for Alabama because they just didn't look like Alabama early on in the first quarter. They settled in a little bit. I thought JoJo Earle really thrived on special teams and really on the offensive side of the ball as well. He might be the new primary punt returner and kick returner now, and really, you got to love what you see from that, just because a true freshman coming in and making an immediate impact like that can go a long way in terms of making Bryce Young feel comfortable with the twitchy wide receiver and your special teams unit, because they know that he can take it to the house on any given kick. Hit that big red button and subscribe to the Alabama Football Report. I'll be here all season long keeping you up to date on Alabama football as they move into SEC play against the Florida Gators. Probably a top 12 matchup down there in the swamp. The Gators moving in, had a QB controversy. We'll keep you up to date on that throughout the week, but this is your one-stop shop for everything Alabama football all season long, including injury news, rumors, recruiting, whatever you like about Alabama football. The Alabama Football Report has you covered. Be sure to hit that big red button. JoJo Earle is going to be special. I get it. I'm being Captain Obvious here. Maybe I need to put my right leg up like Captain Morgan right now. I get it. I'm Captain Obvious, but I really thought that he stood out in this game. On the wide receiver side, he led the team in receiving yards and catches as well. But really the main thing that stood out to me is he is going to be the primary punt returner, as I mentioned a little bit ago, moving forward for this team. He brings an electric feel to either side, whether that's the kick return or the punt return, and he's just so twitchy. And I hate to put this guy into the Jalen Waddle conversation, but that's kind of who he reminds me of. He needs to gain a little bit more weight, just like Jalen did when he showed up to campus, but he has everything you want in that fast, twitchy wide receiver, not afraid to go over the middle, not afraid to get dirty in punt returns. I mean, you absolutely have to love the kid and what he brings to the table. He is going to be the primary punt returner moving forward for the Crimson Tide. Good to see depth perform to expectations. I get it. Mercer scored 2 TDs, right? First time they've scored against Alabama in 4 matchups. Well, at least the last 4 matchups, right? But you want to see the future of Bama out there, right? Those younger guys, those freshmen that may not make an immediate impact, such as JoJo, right away, but will in the future. It was good to see them come out and really just show that talent level. And now there was a couple of mistakes in the secondary, but overall, I thought the Alabama depth played really, really well, and that's what you wanted to see against a team like Mercer, who really had no business being at Bryant-Denny, right? But you have to have somebody on the schedule for week 2. Alabama had them. They handled business and got some of that depth and younger talent, some valuable reps that will help Alabama moving forward into the SEC play, which will start next week in Gainesville against the number 13 Florida Gators.